Hi, welcome to Sprinkle Some Love with a Cause by Trisha Mullin. Today we have Tamara Geving here today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Trisha.
Yeah, she suffers from GP, gastroparesis, and I kind of want to let her start with her story and where she kind of noticed something wasn't quite right with her body. How did that work for you, and where did that start for you?
Well, I noticed in 2015 I was having a lot of upper abdominal pain with some vomiting, and I went to the ER several times throughout that year and through 2016, and they would just say I have diverticulitis and, just kind of push me aside, and I finally just stopped going to the ER because it wasn't, it wasn't doing anything. I wasn't getting any answers. It wasn't until 2018 when I had a car wreck, and they were checking me out, and they found that I had a huge ulcer in my stomach and also a hematoma. And I was in the hospital about a week, and they didn't know how long the ulcer had been there. I didn't even know I had one. But that got better, and the hematoma wasn't big enough for surgery, but it healed itself. But then after that, I noticed my symptoms getting worse, the pain, the vomiting, and I finally got sent to a GI specialist. And he did there's different kinds of gastric emptying tests. They did a 4-hour one. I think there's a 24-hour and a 48-hour. Okay. But the first gastric emptying test I had was the 4-hour, and that's when he finally said, yeah, you have, gastroparesis. And so he put me on, that they always put you on the, just, change your diet, take out fiber and fat. And I did that for a year, and nothing was getting better. And in January of 2020, that's the last real meal I considered a real meal that I had, because after that, I kept getting worse and worse. And he would say, keep going back to a liquid diet. And I got to where I was only able to tolerate liquids. And then after months of that, in July, I was getting to where, July and August, to where I could barely keep down Gatorade. And I finally sat down with him and said, look, we've got to do something different. You need to send me somewhere else to somebody that knows what to do, because I can't live like this. I was working. I have 3 kids, and I just kept going and going and going. So that I don't, time for this. I have to keep going. And I finally ended up at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and they did it was a 24-hour all kinds of tests, a manometry test, everything. And they said you have severe idiopathic gastroparesis. And they immediately put me in the hospital, and started tube feeding through NJ. And they could not believe that my doctor, back where I'm from Arkansas, just sat there and was just watching me starve and didn't offer any kind of
nutritional support,
treatment. Right. And so I was in the hospital there for a while, and that's kind of my story. I'm still having NJ. I'm having other symptoms, like just recently, the past couple of months, because I was having headaches and dizziness, and they're like, oh, that's just from malnutrition, and, the brain fog, and having no energy and all that. So that should get better with the feeding tube. Well, that was, back in September, and I'm still having the symptoms. So, and I was noticing my blood, we're going to talk about blood work and keeping up with all your information, and my platelets are keep going up, my white blood cells keep going up, and I said something to the doctor, and they're like, oh, well, it's just dehydration. And I said, well, in August, I was the most dehydrated I've ever been, and my platelets weren't high. They don't run high. And so I'm actually right now in the process of trying to see a hematologist to see if I have something else going on, essential thrombocytosis possibly. I'm not sure yet.
And how does that affect the body? What made you feel like you have that?
Well, I had every single symptom, like the vision changes, the no energy ever, the I'm sorry, my kids are talking. Vision changes, brain fog, loss of energy, dizziness, all that. I mean, it's not going away. And plus, with the blood work, I started doing my research with. That's another thing I've learned with this disease, and advocating for yourself is you have got to do the research yourself a lot of the times. Even when a doctor says no, you can't be afraid of, when they tell you no, you just got to keep pushing and fighting for yourself and researching and talking to others that, have the same issues you have, finding groups, for a support system and getting your information. And can't be scared of asking the doctor, if you think it's a stupid question, still ask it. I asked the doctor, I said, up at Mayo, I said, and what about a stomach transplant, and they laughed. And I said, well, you do heart transplant, lung transplant. I mean, you do face transplants. You're telling me you can't do a stomach transplant, but yet they have not been able to do that yet. So, but I think when you ask those questions, it might get into thinking, hey, maybe we need to, do something about it. So
right, but you're also at that point in your life where you're willing to take someone else's organ because you know that this organ isn't for me. And that this organ needs to be replaced is the answer.
Right.
Not a feeding tube, not let's bypass using the organ, not, well, she could live without one if we did this, that, tic-tac-toe, and give her these pills.
Right.
And
what kind of quality of life is that with them? I mean, because they did say, oh, we just take out the stomach sometimes, and I'm just thinking, what type of quality of life is
well,
is
it's the quality of life that they're not the ones living, and it's the ones that they feel stay within the rules of the legal law. So at this point of where our science and abilities of what we're capable of, this is the best services that we can provide you. And I'm not mocking it because it helps at times, don't get me wrong, but I'm mocking it at the same time where this is the best, where as far as we've come, as much as we've come, where we can get cameras and scopes in there, we can get pacemakers, we can get machines in there, we can do all of these other things, that this cannot be the best. That I know that there's going to be better. I feel there will be better, but I'm hoping that the time that we get better, like we shouldn't have to wait another 10 years. We've already waited 10 years since you guys have figured out that we're not crazy. You know what I mean? Like the last 10 years of the generation has been the guinea pigs. Okay, we did 10 years of playing around, figuring out this and that. We should be at a point at these trials and tribulations that we should be able to come over these humps and have enough pieces, dots connected to have better medical care for this particular disease. I'm just saying. For all of the hospitals and doctors.
I mean, that's why I was pushing, don't be scared of asking, oh, what if the doctor laughs at me? You can't be scared of that. I mean, ask every question that you can possibly think of.
You have to. And your lab work about that. So you feel like you need to see a hematologist because your plate levels. Have you considered any forms of infections or infectious diseases from the bacterias possibly build up or food spoil bacteria from, there's many options of bacteria and sources.
I've got tested for all of those bacterias. Everything came up fine.
Infectious disease works with more rare diseases. Infectious disease works with more rare diseases, not the basic lab work that your regular doctors would be looking at. And the type of stuff they look at is on a whole as a CDC level compared to the different, your regular doctors, what they're looking at is great, but the CDC level, there's so many infectious, and they have to know all of those in order to work in that department. So literally anything that comes back, they're going to know. So a hematologist only works with certain things within the blood. And I've been to both, and I've found myself needing both. And I found myself getting answers at both. And I would advise you to go to both because it won't hurt. The worst that's going to happen is one place is going to tell you you're here for the wrong reasons and nothing came back, honey. And one place may tell you the same, the second place may tell you the same thing. And you'll be on to a whole new mission to figure out what is this. Or one of those places may tell you yes. But instead of playing the waiting game and doing them and, just might as well hit them all at once. And that's kind of what I do. If I feel like there's an issue, I will find all three categories of doctors that could be the one to solve this. And I'll make an appointment at all three and I'll let all three of them do their work and see what all three of them come up with. And then they'll all three conversate together, obviously, now that we have new diagnoses, and see if we all agree. And then we'll go from there. And maybe we just found three new things because within my body, I've noticed I've got a lot of different things. And as those different things continue to progress, new things are constantly created. So new diagnoses are nothing new for me. But I definitely feel like anytime bacteria or toxics are built up in your body, your platelets change. And
Right.
anytime anything is abnormal in your blood, things change. So you're looking at both of those departments, your actual blood itself, which is the hematology. I even got from the first hematologist sent to hematology oncology because they weren't really sure what was going on. And then the oncologist got to the bottom of it. And I've been seeing that oncologist now, I want to say almost for 10 years, off and on. And I just seen her again this year. She's great, and she always figures out like whatever's going on at that moment with me. And even if it's
Right.
in her department or not, as long as it's in my blood, she can confirm it and help it, but she doesn't always treat it because it's not always in her department. So she'll also give me like referrals to good doctors if it is in their department, and help me move forward with that plan with those doctors. So a hematologist is good to have on your team, but infectious disease
Yeah.
doctor has saved me multiple times because things and toxic build up, and if it
And
was
I didn't even think about that. They never sent me to an infectious disease doctor at all.
well,
They
it's
sent
not
me
some.
to a special neurologist for the gut, but not, without,
Well, there's no need to get an infectious disease doctor if they've done it for their aspect. So they're only judging you off of their one, their particular organ that they're treating and their issues. And the platelets aren't coming back as a bacteria to them. So there's no
right,
red flags to them. But for an infectious disease doctor, where certain bacteria live on certain things and it's really hard to get your numbers, certain things like that that have been a study change are a big key and a sign. But because they're two different departments, one doctor wouldn't know what's going on in the other doctor's department because that's not their department. It's kind of hard. Like, it took me a long time to
right,
understand that because I would blame so much on doctors at times. And I'd find myself like pointing the finger at a doctor sometimes for not finding what I was hoping, but it wasn't even in their department to find. And that's kind of where I realized how important a primary care provider is. And I still haven't found the greatest one yet, but where they're supposed to tell me, like, I go to them with those complaints, and my primary care provider would then say, oh, well, let's go to infectious disease doctor. Let's also get you into your stomach doctor. Let's also get you into the hematologist and see if it's any of these three issues and see what they feel. If there was a flag here, or there, and they would be the one that monitors your overall health. But most primary care providers that I've come across only manage your complaints as you come in, not your full health. And even with these
right,
memory fogs, like, and I don't know what treatments I need or don't need. I don't know what flags I'm looking for or don't need. I don't know how often I should be in here getting blood work on a regular for lupus or for thyroid disease or for this or for that. So like that's what your job is to manage those things and tell me and make sure that I'm coming to those appointments and making those appointments, and appointment reminders and things. But they don't do those things, most of them out here in Michigan. They just kind of like, whenever you come in with your complaint, we'll treat that, we'll do some lab work, we'll get you some scripts if you need constant refills and come in every few months. But there's no actual like full care treatment. I feel it's kind of like a complain. What you complain about is what we'll treat about.
right,
There. So
exactly.
so some of that needs to change. But the feeding tubes and all of that, they create some bacterias that can go unlooked at, especially if your specialist isn't a GP specialist. They may not specialize in those bacteria either, and they're trying to do a job because some states don't even have doctors that know anything about GP. That's why it sounds like you had to go out of state because you're probably one of the states that don't have doctors that know anything about it. So you're even left
Right.
at a lower level of care because now they're uneducated. And if you're uneducated, you can't care for me properly because you're not even aware of what the disease does. And by the time you become aware is because you have a client now that went through it, which is me. I became your guinea pig. So now on your next
Yeah.
GP patient, you'll now be aware of these things and you'll now really know what to look for firsthand because, of the patient you had previously. But without ever having a GP patient, um, then that doctor definitely, you have to do a lot more advocating for yourself because that doctor has so many other patients to advocate for that I highly doubt that he or she is staying up in the middle of the night thinking of us. You know what I mean?
Right.
And how we need advocating, or did we vomit 10 times today, or how did that soup go they ate this afternoon for lunch? Like,
Yeah, and that's what I felt like the first specialist I went to. I felt like he didn't know, but he didn't want to say. Like his ego kind of got in the way a little bit.
True.
Instead of trying to say, "Hey, I don't know, but let's find somebody." I mean, I had to pull it out of him, and finally stand up for myself and be like.
So how did you do that? Tell us a little bit about how that visit went.
Oh, well, after it was actually after he had been at EGD, and he came back and he was like, I just can't find anything. And I said, well, I can't live like this. And I don't know, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but it sounds like you don't know what to do. You need to send me to somebody who does. I said, where do you think I should go? And he said, I think you need to go to Mayo Clinic. And so I just, I called them and sent my records, and I was in within, a month or so. And I'm really glad I did, because when I got there, I didn't realize how.
And how far is that from you? The Mayo Clinic? How far
is it? About a 12-hour drive.
Okay. And how long did you have to stay at the Mayo Clinic at that point in order to get better treatment now?
Oh, gosh. I was there a couple of weeks. I usually go, I go about at the beginning. When I was in the hospital, I was there 2 weeks, I believe. And then I went once a month, and I would stay about a week each time, depending on the situation.
And over that week, what care did they provide during that week? And is that across state lines during the 12 hours?
Oh, yes. From Arkansas to Minnesota, it's about a 12-hour drive. We flew sometimes. We drive most of the time.
Okay.
But my husband hates to fly. That's why we drive. But plus, then you have a car and you can kind of just, go to different, it's easier.
Yeah, you can stop, go to the bathroom, find a place to vomit in peace.
Right.
Have privacy.
Have to wear, a mask the whole time and all that.
Yes.
But they did, when I first got there, they did a full workup. I had a manometry test where they put these sensors all the way down through your mouth, all the way down to your intestine, and then they have you drink this shake, and they watch he was looking to see if anything was wrong with my pylorus, see if I needed surgery to open that up, and he didn't want to go in and cut or make anything worse, because they're so scared of damaging that vagus nerve, which is already damaged, making things progress more. But they were pretty thorough. I also saw a neurologist that specifically dealt with the gut, and I came up positive for the ganglionic acetylcholine receptor, which I had never heard of.
I haven't either. This is new to me. So, how does that work?
And I asked him. I said, "What is this? Could this be causing?" I even sent him a message when all these, the last couple of months. I said, "Could this be causing, the platelets and the white blood cells and all of this stuff?" And he said, "Unlikely. It's very unlikely." He said, "You are so, you are low on the tier, so I don't think that this would be causing it." So, but to me, I feel like I still came up positive for it. So I feel like it's still an option of why I'm having some problems, some issues.
Right, I'm sure it
But
has a
you know,
contribution to it. Like it's a portion. Everything that goes on in any part of our body with the nerves contributes back to wherever it's damaged at because you're pulling more, need help over here. So now it's going to be less over here, or, you know, the nerves are only prepared to do so much, and they already having the vagus nerve damage, which is a main nerve, becomes a big issue, obviously. And the more damage it
right,
gets, or the more work on one end of another that it has issues, it's going to continue, like to wear and
right,
tear back at the other end, because you can't add more stress or power over here than it's taking it from over here. And if it already has
right,
less to begin with because it's damaged, it's going to now even have more less. So that's kind of even why I also feel about like anxiety and depression and stuff. We often go through that from as a secondary issue, no matter what disease we have, and any stress that we pull from those issues too can make our GP flare worse or harder, or the anxiety of having to get up and go out in public and do like just simple things can make us flare up even more because we're stressing how we're going to deal with that emotionally, physically, and mentally.
oh, absolutely, I totally agree 100%. I think you go through a depression. I think you go through an anger stage. I mean,
Shut
I
up.
know I have for sure, like the littlest things. Like for example, I don't eat very much at all, if at all, by mouth, and I can be driving by, a restaurant and seeing all these people, seeing all the cars and people at these restaurants that get to eat, and I automatically just get angry, and there's no reason for that, but you start to make
Feeling a
think like,
bitterness
wow,
or
I really,
angriness or
yeah,
like, oh, you
yeah,
guys just don't realize how lucky you are. I know.
right,
I went to
right,
Tropical Cafe the other day with my daughter, and I was really I ordered this food. It looked so good. I love food porn. But then when I went to go eat it, it didn't hurt. It hurted. It put me down for 3 days. I couldn't even eat a quarter of the sandwich. But what I did like and what I did learn is that Tropical Cafe has these awesome smoothies, and I realized there's like this whole. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a supplement department. And I'm reading, I'm like, ooh, there's B12, there's protein, there's multiple vitamins, and I'm reading through all this stuff, and I'm like, ooh, I want some of this, I want some of that, I want some of this. And I'm like, what do I put it in though? And I'm like, ooh, I could put it in the smoothies. And I'm like, it's 99 cents a piece. So I did like 3 or 4 things, and it was only like $4 upcharge. But it was worth it because it didn't taste like, when you add or you take those supplements, how they taste nasty and we can't digest them and they're horrible. They're already powdered
right,
supplements mixed in, and they didn't have any flavor. And I didn't like feel like nasty or like I want to vomit after I consumed my smoothie. So I definitely think that going back to Tropical Cafe will be something I do. And I'm normally not like, I hate going to new restaurants, and then my daughter always begs me, why don't we do our mommy daughter a new restaurant? That was fun when I could eat good food. You know what I mean? And I can, but there's
right.
only certain things, and it's like, and it's still, meat just horribly bothers me. I don't know why, but meat and me just don't go along. And chicken and I try to get along, but sometimes we still can't get along. Like no matter what I do, meat and I are just not for each other.
I have a friend. We were talking about meat and stuff. She was vomiting, and she got tested for something called alpha gal, which is an autoimmune. And once she took meat out of her diet, she she was fine. Like so,
I'm
she
about to write
she
that.
stayed away from meat. So yeah, if you ever want to ask your doctor about being tested for alpha gal,
Spell that for me again.
ALPHA
Okay.
space GAL.
All right. I'm gonna look into that. Because I feel like after I did, like, I cut out all meat except for chicken and turkey from my diet, and once in a while, like a processed hamburger from like McDonald's, because they don't spoil that long in my stomach. So I feel like after I did that and I cut most of my meat out, I did feel a rapid change. And I did like the elimination diet for a long time, and that helped with certain things to be able to identify like what did work for me and what didn't work for me. But still, no matter what I eat, I still have a delayed, regardless. And vagus nerve damage, multiple areas. So at this point, but I feel like there's still something else because there's certain things, whatever I eat, and still this memory fog and my headaches and the dark circles under my eyes at times that good makeup helps cover up. Like the circles are something that gets me no matter how much sleep I get. I feel like I keep getting these things, dark circles. And no matter how much beauty rest I get, or my lips keep going so white.
So, my lips are, I can tell, since I drink, I sip through the day, but I deal with that too. My lips are always dry.
Yeah, they're dry and they're always, like, the other day didn't even look like I had lips. They were so no pink. And I'm like, I love makeup and lip glosses and stuff because I can just slap that on and no one really knows. I can pull my lips back. Like, I know where they are. So, yeah, I definitely am going to look into that. So how did anxiety or depression affect you in any way through this rut? I know that it hasn't been easy on you, I'm sure. Go ahead.
I definitely agree. And depression, I think, goes along with any, chronic illness, especially when you're dealing with it every day for, years and years. I know that I have gone through a lot of dark places, just with getting up every day, feeling nauseated every day, and you just, doctor appointment after doctor appointment, and, not getting answers, and just not being able to eat, and and an anxiety of not knowing, and it's just, it's a constant, mind battle, and I think it's okay to grieve and be in those places. You can't just stay there. You got to get out of it, because I feel like if your mind stays there, your body will follow. And
Correct.
You have to keep fighting. And I know the things that keep me going are my husband and my kids. And my husband is responsible for, he pulls me up a lot out of, the negativity that, I have about it. And my kids, I think about, I got to keep going for them. They have special needs, and I've got to be around. So I keep that fight going. But I think it is definitely normal, and anyone, I think, with a chronic illness would agree that that's something that you're gonna fight with.
Definitely. So what has helped get you out of those ruts? Because you said you have to. So I'm assuming you have. So how did you do it? What did you do? Give us your secret.
Well, a lot of it is also finding a support group of other people that are going through what you're going through, because you can be surrounded by people and still feel really alone, because I think your loved ones, they watch you go through this, and they can't do anything, and they feel helpless, and they can't do anything, and it's really hard and crushing for them. And but you also need to talk to people that are going through what you're going through, so you don't feel as alone. I have a support group, and it's called Gastroparesis Creations Awareness, and Rachel Evans, I actually met her up in Mayo. We were doing that gas printing test at the same time together, and I met her, and I talked to her a lot, and she's gotten me through a lot of things. And I think when you have a lot of people that have this diagnosis, and you share information, and you uplift each other, and I listen to a lot of uplifting music, and God has really pulled me. I've gotten closer to God during this time of my life, and has really helped me get through. But definitely, you've got to have a support system. And I know there's people out there that that don't have a family that understand, that are like, oh, just get over it. You feel bad, and just get over it.
Or eat more. Go ahead and eat some more. You've just been losing a lot of weight. Yeah. If you quit throwing it up and try to eat, it'll be better.
Right. And they just don't get it. And so you've got to have somebody that you can talk to that understands. And that's why I wanted to, part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast, because I know there's people out there that don't have anyone they can talk to, and you feel free to always reach out to me or,
Yes, I like your support group. And I really think that having a support group is so important and being in one, because you have a group of people that support your and understand your actual struggle. So when you go on there and you post about your vomiting today, or your infection, or how your tube pulled out, or what do you do, or how you're not able to go number 2 today, or what can I do to help with this, or why are my blood plates like that, or what ointment should I use for this rash that came about by the tube, or all your random questions that you don't want to run to the doctor's office for every time, because that's a lot of energy and effort just for a simple question. And that there are so many others out there that might just have the answer. It's just like a simple post away, and I don't say for medical advice purposely, but yeah.
I have asked questions on this group, and I feel like there's no judgment. I'm like, hey, there are giving me these options for feeding tubes. I want to know who's had which one. If you've had all of them, which one's the best? Go. And then people will tell you, what worked best for them, the side effects, what the doctors tell you,
that support, knowing that, having that information at the fingertips of your palms when it's a rare disease and nobody else really understand what you're going through, is an amazing thing to have. It's amazing to be able to just reach out to a group of people and ask these simple questions, and like she said, they just be so willing to tell you the personal things that they probably don't even tell their family. They're willing to share with you because they understand that you are fighting the same battle as them, and that you need these answers, and they have them. And it's probably some of the answers that are just daily things for them, that it would be so easy, that would just save someone so much struggle just to get that simple answer to that question. You don't know how much you're helping them, just like with you, your platelets, not thinking about bacteria or levels, that could save you how much time, 6 months, 8 months, and by then how much longer would the bacteria have grown before, and what species would it become before you realize, and then what would you have to do to get rid of, and how long would that take? Just simple things like that type of experience and knowledge that you can give to others from your trials and tribulations. At least now you feel like they're there for a reason, I can help someone now. Okay. So let me tell you what
Absolutely.
I did, and just having
I feel like I waited too long to tell the first GI specialist to send me to somebody else, and I would tell anybody else in a heartbeat, don't sit there and starve and just think, okay, well, he's the doctor, he knows best, your body, push, fight for yourself. I wish I hadn't waited that long. I wouldn't have gone into repeating syndrome. Maybe I wouldn't have been put in the hospital for that long.
Correct.
It helps to talk to other people, so
it does.
It'll cut some time down on your suffering, hopefully.
When I was going through it, I at first was scared too to tell doctors, and I remember my first stomach doctor I had got really didn't know nothing of nothing, and I really wanted to tell him where to go. And I decided, and then I'm going in here, I'm going in this office, and I'm telling him to his face that I don't like him, and I don't want him no more, and this and that. And at that time, I didn't know that you could just actually fire your doctor and just not go to him and pick up a new doctor. I thought you had to go in there and get his permission and explain to him why he wasn't capable, and then he would give you a referral to the next doctor who would be capable. And I kind of thought that was the order of operation there. I went in there, told him off, and he was so mad. And he didn't know what was going on with me, and I felt like he didn't care about me as a patient, and I felt like he didn't care about me as an individual. I look 12 often, but I have 2 children. My daughter is 16 right now, and my son is 14. And I've been here all this time, but that was years ago when they were babies, and I'm trying to fight because I have to raise these babies. And if I would have stayed in his office, I don't know where I would have been. And then when I left his office, still fighting with the next doctors, became, again, I have fought with so many doctors or developed the nickname The Runner, because I realized that, okay, your plan I'm not liking. I leave for a while. I realize I'm not doing that. I go to seek self-help or a different doctor's opinion. Then eventually I come back and I hope that we could work on a better plan. And I'm still not here for your plan, but I still need help because there's nowhere else to go. I've kind of bounced around the circle of people that are available to help me, and no one's trying to do what I want done because I'm not going to settle for, oh, let's just do this or let's add that. Like, these not, they're not experienced people. And the one guy that I really met that was experienced has always been way too busy. And, like, I've been trying to get back into his office again, and he's in the middle of relocating offices, and this office is closed down, and this one's not seeing patients right now. And, like, so who do we all go to?
Right, yeah.
So, like,
you have to search, and I mean,
we're in limbo land. I'm on a waiting list. I'm on a waiting list because once he reopened the office, everybody that was already currently regularly seeing him and wasn't runners got back in, and I'm on a waiting list. And when the waiting list gets to me, I'll get a phone call on when I can make an appointment. Not when I can come in, when I can make the appointment. I'm like, oh my Lord. So I can't even and I don't even know when I get to make the appointment.
Right. And then you have some that don't even call you back. I have one that I'm trying to get into that's closer to where I live. And I've sent them my records, and I've called and left messages. And so my next, option is I'm going to just show up.
I've done that.
At the office.
I've done exactly what you're doing. They get my record, and they're like, oh, she's got a lot of stuff. They try to avoid the issue because you're a liability or a risk, or you are, you've already tried all the procedures I would try, and they didn't work for you, so, yeah, I just don't call you to tell you that I'm not the guy for you, and then I sit in their offices, I wait, and I say, oh, I'll wait all day to see him today, that's fine. And then I wait, and eventually I get in, and then eventually, A, they take me, or B, they tell me what I already know, that they can't help me. But I don't leave there without a referral to someone who can. Does your state require referrals?
They always told me, like, when I went to Mayo, when I called them, I had to check with my insurance, and my insurance did not require a referral. But what's interesting is Mayo actually sent my records to another GI specialist down here for kind of like a backup plan of, somebody closer if I had an emergency. And the office down here required a referral from Mayo. So okay. I don't know, it was very weird to me that I didn't need one to go up to Mayo, but to go to this.
Well, Mayo's across state lines, and Mayo is a hospital, which is a different criteria than an office. And sure. You're within state lines, within your rules and guidelines, and it's a specialist, and it's an office for long-term care, not emergency care, which is a hospital, which proceeds by law, if that makes sense. Right. So that could be why. But your referral for the doctor there, you should definitely be maintaining your visits if you can, so that you can not have to do regular visits at the Mayo Clinic. If he is a good doctor and can take over care to where Mayo Clinic doesn't have to be as often.
Yeah. And if he would call me back, because they sent the referral, they sent my records. I've been trying to get into this to a new one for a while now. So we will see what happens with that.
So
I might have to search for another one.
What I would do is I would call back Mayo Clinic, and I would speak to someone in the office, like the head RN in the department, maybe, of who gave you the referral at that office, and see if she can personally herself call over there and check on your referral and see if she can help get you an appointment in. I've actually had nurses call and make appointments for me as well and express the need and concern, because when the office or a nurse from the office is calling that office, it also puts you on like a different emergency list to where you get a sooner appointment because they're expressing their concern. So if you can get a nurse to call on your behalf, that might help you get in quicker.
That is a really good idea. I need to do that because I was doing this all through the portal. You know how they
oh yeah,
you send messages and stuff.
And I just went to my hematologist, oncologist, and they're gonna tell me that the portal that they have, they actually don't have access. So the medical records and the forms that I filled out with them, I need to refill out in the office. I'm like, huh?
Oh, wow.
So some of these people are getting access to these portals, but their offices aren't actually equipped technology-wise to maintain. So if I just ran into that, and we're real electronic savvy out here in Michigan, I'm assuming out in the mountains we're really going to have some problems. So I don't know if your portal is actually an active way or not. I would normally recommend the portal, like, first and foremost. But the portal is not always mandated by the doctors or checked on a daily or a regular. So I would still be calling the office myself or emailing them with their, if they have an email directly, not through the portal though, like if they actually have like a business email. Or a fax machine if you could fax, but that's really going back far. But honestly, they still do faxes on a regular, and they check them faxes daily way more than they do them emails.
For sure.
So, and getting a nurse to call would be my number one way if I couldn't get through them myself. But the portal, I haven't ever had very much success with myself either. Just only to get my own records from or for appointment reminders. But I think the portal is more or less for the patient, and once in a while they check it, but it's not like someone that wakes up every day and is just checking messages in those portals all day long and gets paid to just reply back and forth to be their tech person, you know. And it took me a while to realize that too, because I'm like, well, I've been emailing for 3 days, and I sound like a Karen on the phone, you know, like, and but really, there's no one doing any of that. And the people that are, when they get to it, we've already gotten a hold of the people. By the time I'm getting messages back, I've already done your job for you, ma'am. Have a good day.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you really want to speed that up, I would try those options. But so how has
I'm gonna do that today, actually.
How has the feed-in tube helped you gain weight or get back to your original weight? And how much weight did you lose before getting your feed-in tube, if you don't mind me asking those questions?
The lowest, I'm 5'6", 5'6" and a half. Well, they tell me 5'6", and then another time they tell me 5'6" and a half. You know, whatever. I don't know if it's shrunk or what, but I started, I guess, in 2015 when all of this started. I was in the best shape of my life, and I ate well. I was around, I think, 135, 140, and the lowest I got during this time period was around 110, 112. I'm back up to, I stayed around 125 to 130, but I still look too thin to me. You know.
And how tall are you again?
5'6".
Okay, so you are kind of tall. So I mean, I feel why you feel that way, but you're doing better though than right. I'm like, you're doing better, and I feel why you feel that way. But at this point, at least, like, I'm assuming your chest plate and stuff like that isn't showing as much as it would have been before the feed-in tube, and like you've been able to get meat back on your skin. I remember those moments where when I first needed a feed-in tube, but I didn't get mine. I was scared. I rejected and tried to figure out any other way. My arms were so like flabby from the amount of muscle that I had lost, you know. But my neck and my chest bone was so bony, like I had too much flab over here, not enough flab here, and I'm like, oh.
They have to use a pediatric armband for blood pressure.
I still have to use that on a regular. Yes, I still have to use that on a regular. So yeah, I'm glad that you've gained the weight back. That's good. So has the feed-in tube, you would say, has been a good experience for you, a life changer?
Definitely. And I mean, they're pushing me to do a permanent tube, and I really do not want to do that yet. I'm really hoping to hopefully be able to advance, at least get liquid, you know, down, like a boost or something to where I can live on that. I've, you know, talked to so many people that have the permanent tubes that have so many issues and problems, and I feel like right now in my life with my kids, I can't be in the hospital all the time. I can't, you know, deal with
if your body is comfortable with the tube you have, why change it?
That's what, well, they're saying, okay, here's the thing. Mayo is pushing me to get the permanent because they're saying, you know, with the NJ, it's a liability because of the nasal and the esophagus and all this stuff. Well, I got an opinion from another surgeon, and he said he patients that have had NJs for 5 years,
So why didn't you stay with your second opinion doctor?
Well, because I really wanted to stick with Mayo because they're so good, so good.
Okay.
But now they're not refusing care, but now they're telling me if I do not proceed with the permanent, that, they're not going to continue the NJ. So I'm going to find a doctor here that will, which will probably be that surgeon that I talked to earlier.
Okay. Hopefully he'll take over your care.
Right.
And my real opinion here would be for you need to do a little bit of medical digging on how much percentage is you're emptying currently, like nowadays, like a new gastric emptying study, current up to date. How are you able to empty any at all on your own? Are you able to do you use bowels? Does it go through your full system or does it not? Because and where does the actual problem lie? Because if you remove if you keep the tube you're on now and eventually get rid of the tube and go back to normal eating, that would be your goal, or halfway eating and half, you just have to make sure that you're not continuing more damage. So you need to know where is the issues and determine what is the percentages, because there's a bigger picture on why the Mayo Clinic wants the permanent tube, and it's not just those factors. It's probably the other factors of where your organs may not ever be able to go back to it, and if we did, it would only cause more damage or this or that to go wrong. So, and keeping you on it, if we know that they're the inevitable, would eventually cause risk and be a high risk in long-term factors. So if we know right now that this organ isn't going to perform ever to the best of its ability, why are we going to prolong treatments and play around with 10 tubes or 5 tubes or once a month visits or all these other options when we need to just go in there and do the job that's needed to be done? Plan A. Or plan B is you're in denial, the doctors are in denial, and that they're wrong, but the only way that they would be wrong is if that organ is still a vital organ, and that means it still works to an extent or up to a certain percentage to where it could recover eventually and go back to good health. So that's something you're going to want to look at, because if you don't, you could just be poking holes in your own Band-Aids, and hurting yourself by not getting the permanent tube. And their permanent tube is going to be a hump, whether you do.
The other problem, absolutely. The other problem I had with them with that is, they gave me 2 different options of permanent tubes, and they said, this one, the DJ is going to be the best for you because where you live, they are going to be able to handle complications. The J tube, there's nobody down where you live that can handle complications. Well, when I went back up there this last time, it was a whole different story. She was like, you can't do the GJ, the J tube is what you need. And I said, well, you just said the last time I was here that that was not an option because nobody down where I live could handle complications. Are you telling me in 60 days there isn't? That's why I'm having such a problem with the decision.
I still think getting a second or third opinion is needed, and do a little bit of studying before making the decision, and go over this with a team of other doctors that can develop those stats and numbers. But make your decision based off the realization of the stats and numbers, because the damage in there is really the important factor. How much is permanent damage? And if the permanent damage is irreversible, then the longer that you play around with toy options, the longer that you're going through more pain and suffering and possibilities of issues or complications that could not be needed if you just get the permanent one, if you know that this is going to be a permanent situation. But that's where we're coming to the realization of whether it is or ain't permanent is something for you and only you to determine, because you know your body, and for those numbers and the doctors to determine with you. And that's where you find a doctor who's willing to show you and explain to you, because you have to be comfortable with the decision as the patient. You can't just tell me I'm going to have this thing forever in my body and then me to be like, oh, really? Okay. I'll sign right here. So who's going to do this and that for the kids while I'm gone? And who's going to... Well, once you sign here, girl, just be here on the 13th. That's all I can tell you. The rest of that is for you to figure out. And don't come stressed, because that's horrible for you. But wait a minute.
Yeah.
Who's going to pay the rent? Who's going to take care of the kids? You just told me all of this and gave me like a week to get these affairs in order for a forever life-changing procedure. You know, so, and I'm cutting out, like, food, which is something I absolutely love. So, hold up. We've been cutting it out long enough with the idea that I was going to one day return to it. Yeah, so now I got to come to the realization of that, and I'm not supposed to come stressed. Okay. So, this is not going to work out. So you feel me?
Yeah.
Like, I feel you. So, but you have to really do some soil searching here and some real planning, which takes time, and coming up with, is this going to be a good fit or not? And if you really believe that Mayo Clinic is as good as they say they are, you need to call them out and ask them, why do you feel that I need this so bad? Break it down to me as if I really don't know nothing about GP right now. Treat me like I'm stupid. Forget everything I've ever said to you and explain to me. And ask them, and have them show you numbers, have them go back and show you data that gave them that opinion that this was forever, and ask me what makes you feel this is forever. Show me. And if a doctor can show me his medical opinion from forever, I'll take a copy of all of those things that you just showed me, by the way, and I'll go over here to Dr. B and ask him to look through that data and feel is his opinion the same, and can he show me data to contest what this doctor is saying, because this doctor is saying, based off these labs and these pieces of papers, that they feel this is forever. And can you show me some piece of paper saying that those numbers have since changed or are no longer the same, and that evaluation is different? Because maybe at that point in time with those numbers, yeah, our little book tells us that 2 + 2 makes 4, and that's what we have to do. But somehow or another, a miracle happens, and your body now has created 3. You feel me? And now we can go over here to door B, because our book says that's an option now. But, you know, so really those data and what's on the paper is how these doctors determine their prognosis. And the prognosis could be forever based on that data. But does that data change before we make a permanent decision off of prognosis? You feel me? Like, so that's where you're at in life, which is very hard and complicated. I kind of just recently went through a similar hump where determining whether we'll remove some organs or not, or is this even real? What's on my organs? Is that mass present still? Is it big? Who's looked at it last? Why are we making decisions? Like, whoa, hold up here. Let's go get this doctor and that doctor and this doctor involved, and let's do some data here, and let's start comparing some things, and let me see what you see, and then I, as the advocate, will determine who here has won their battle between these doctors and who here has made the correct data that feels like, okay, my heart is telling me that you're right and that your pieces of papers are right, and that's the one I'm going to go with. That's the verdict that wins. Everybody else has been fired and may go home.
And that's the end of the day. You know, it's your body, and you're the one that's going to have to deal with that decision.
And that is,
they go home, and
yep.
You're going to have to, you have to be on board.
Getting multiple opinions at one time is nothing wrong with it. There is nothing wrong with picking up 2 or 3 different specialists whenever something new comes up to go in and take it. And there is nothing wrong with calling your doctor out and asking them to show you the data and make them explain their work, because I'm not understanding how this decision came about, or why am I forced to make this decision right now, and why shouldn't we wait? What will happen to me if I wait 90 days to make this decision? And then based on whatever you said will happen, I need can you write that down for me? And then I want to take that to the next doctor to get another opinion, maybe a second opinion or a third opinion. Sometimes, you know, just might save your life. I know that it has for me, my sister, and some friends of mine, where I've said, I don't know, you know, you should just reconsider some of that, because, you know, I actually, when I had a surgery go wrong and I was septic, and they wanted to recut me open and do, like, you know, a incision from my ribs all the way to my belly button straight forward. And I had already had pitchfork holes going the other way, you know, across my belly, the way a C-section scar would go. That to do a straight hole up and down now would literally be like a cross across my stomach, and almost like a mortician, you know. And I'm like, I can't go through that right now to do an exploratory surgery. to see what all went wrong in the last surgery. There's like MRIs for this. There's CAT scan. I can think of a million other ways of seeing what the heck's going on in there before you just decide to knock me on out and cut me on open. And I did not let them cut me open, and they kept telling me, "Oh, you're gonna die if you don't." I said, "Well, I guess you better get to them getting me on that machine real quick then." And they said, "You serious?" Yeah, you might want to page another doctor here too, real quick then. Whatever doctor you were talking, I'll wait for him to come too. I'm in there taking Snapchat pictures. The doctor gets there, and I'm like, They're like, "Well, you don't look like you're dying." I'm like, "Well, I don't feel any pain. They're talking. I know what they're saying, but I want another opinion. I want some scans. I want some tests. I want some data. I'm not just getting back on that table for an exploratory nothing." And I'm glad I did that. That saved probably a lot. They wanted to remove like pieces of my bowels, more of them at the time, and all this other stuff, and where these abscesses were and these holes. And I was like, you know what? No. Let's get somebody else in here today. I ended up firing, I think, like 3 different doctors or something like that on that journey. It was quite the recovery. But I fired, I don't even know how many doctors along the way, because I feel like whatever they're reading out of that book is not the same thing I'm reading. And I think we're all reading the same book, but somehow we're getting the same different answers, like in math, Somehow 6 divided by 4 multiplied by 3 divided plus 2 equals, everyone's got something different. And I'm like, oh, Lord. And I really think that if we could all kind of, like, get in, like, these support groups and help each other, because out of all of us, we have different medical doctors, but all of us as patients have the same opinion. All of us as patients have the same 2 plus 2 makes 4. We already know what's next. We already know this because as the patients, we're the ones living it. Where doctors are reading it from books or reading from it from a previous patient's issue, and not all patients are alike either. That's why, like, you might go in the support group and someone will say, "Oh, I've had 5 feeding tubes," and someone will say, "I've never had a feeding tube. Am I not as sick as they are?" Or, you'll have different things with each patient, yes. But in the end, these patients are what's helping this medical journey. Like, if it wasn't for other patients and other support groups, through the years, I wouldn't have had the courage to tell off some of these doctors. I wouldn't have had the courage to say, no, that I want to be tested for this, or no, I need a gastric emptying test and I need it now. Or someone said something about a radioactive egg. I want to do that. And I don't know what that's about, but I know that they got a diagnosis and everything they're talking about kind of sounds like me. Doctors kind of laughed at me, radioactive egg, what is she talking about? And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Look it up, Google it. And can I get a referral to go do that? Well, you know what? Fine. Go ahead, Trish. You're always coming up with these crazy things, and if you think that that's it, we'll go ahead and look into it, but we still want to do this endoscopy. Okay, we can do this endoscopy, but what about that radioactive egg? When will I get that? And then I ate that boy, and that gave me my answer, is that radioactive egg. I remember going down to the radiology department, and it was like my first time going down there for like a big test, and I was real young, and I was alone, and I was kind of a little scared, like, what happens if this radioactive egg doesn't digest and it like blows up in my stomach? And I'm like, what happens if this radioactive egg makes me grow an eyeball somewhere I shouldn't, or some crazy stuff. And then the next thing I know, I ate that thing, and a couple days later I got my results, and lo and behold,
you had your answer.
I had the answer, gastroparesis, and I went back to that doctor so proud, not knowing what I even had, so young, and I was just so ready to prove him wrong. Come back with this piece of paper, flying it in his face, and then I get a referral to a specialist to find out that food and I are no longer friends. And that we were going to have to break up. And
which is the worst breakup.
Yeah, it was very slow. We had a couple affairs. We cheated a couple times, And lo and behold, I had to let it go for a while, and I had to come to the realization that it wasn't going to work when I got down to 75 pounds. And I had to, after that, get back up. And slowly now I can eat food again, but it's not the same, and it's not the same foods that I enjoyed before, because they took away everything that was good. And the things that I've tried to find goodness in now still don't work with me. you know, and I'm finding myself like every couple days I eat a really good meal and then I'm not eating for the next couple days because that good meal has held me over that long or has gave me pain that long or has made me very sleepy and worn out for that long. And it's the opposite effect of what full should do to you, revise you, give you the energy. And it's like the whole negative effect. You know, and then with the bladder disease, all these liquids, I try to drink and drink and drink because, you know, you try to eat that way. Well, I've got the bladder disease. So any liquids I put in, that's a whole nother problem, a whole nother issue with, you know. So it's like no matter what I put into my mouth, it's like torment. And no matter which way it comes out, it's torment from the IBS or from the IC or from, you know, all these other issues. So it's like, how do you, like, break up with food? Like, how do you do that and still live? You know, and like the regular people just don't understand that. And I really want them to understand that that's what this disease causes us to do, is to break up with food and to get into a relationship with a machine or a tube that's feeding you, or like a nightmare. Is really what it is. And there's no real good medical care. And no matter what I hear, no matter what state, I heard one girl who got the answer off Jump, who also got a specialist that specialized in it off Jump, and who has fabulous care and has since and still does off Jump. One person, and that's it. Everybody else has had, like, we all have the same story of we were in denial, we were crazy, we didn't know what we had, we were sick, we had to figure it out, we had to jump around, cry around, fight around, figure it. Then we get our diagnosis, and we're so happy, and then we realization of what it is we're happy about.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
And you're happy to know, just because that gives you so much empowerment, because now you can get ahead of the fight, you can get ahead of the journey, you can go ahead and get prepared for the battle. But you don't really realize that it's like a never-ending battle. There is no, like, with war, there's an end, and we can get over this.
You're always fighting.
There's every morning, every day, every night, every afternoon, every meal, every time you go to the bathroom, it's a battle. And that's the realization, because even though cancer sucks, some people can get rid of cancer. People can overcome it. They can cure it. They can, go chemo, radiation, and we can go ahead and go in there and cut it out. And you can go into readmission, and then eventually, hopefully, it doesn't come back. With us, the readmission isn't even the same. And through the readmission, we're still pain and suffering. We're just able to hold it down a little longer or force it through for a while before some more damage occurs. But there is no permanent readmission. There is no, it's gone. There just is, you're not having a flare today. And a flare just means it's extra horrible right now. It's not your normal badness. But it's still always a badness. There's not, like, a moment where you're like, I don't think I have GP anymore.
Right.
I think that last readmission, like, really got rid of it forever. Like, let's go have ice cream and a cheesecake and some fucking pizza. Like, maybe a beer or alcohol or fucking shot. Something I ain't had in, I don't know. You know, and you get so excited, and then you maybe go do those celebrations, and you're back home like, no, why did I do that? Crying and hurting, and like, I don't know why I should have thought we were over this. I should have just followed the rules, and I could have had a few more good days, you know, and then you're beating yourself up over that celebration. And people don't understand that, like, how people feel about the food and the anxiety that comes behind that beautiful pizza. You know, it's beautiful, greasy, and horribly painful.
And hunger is a real problem.
Oh.
Like, you know, we have people miss one meal and, you know, they're cranky and angry, and I'm like, I haven't had a real meal in over a year. You know, I'm just, you know, like, think how angry I am. But
yes.
You just have to just keep going.
I'm a hangry person. I'm a hangry person when I need to eat. I am hangry, and when I don't get to eat, you really know it. When I'm hungry, you know it. And then I get hangry to the point I just go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'm asleep, and you're lucky enough that this hangry lady is sleeping. And you better leave me asleep too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then the real hangry will come out. Because now I'm hangry and sleepy. And
well, that's when you get your relief, is when you're asleep.
Yes.
That's only relief and pain, pain relief from the nausea when you're asleep.
So when you first wake up from your sleep, do you notice that that's when you're more volatile or detoxing your body is trying to relieve itself in whatever way it does?
I would say so. I can tell you that every morning I wake up, I have nausea.
Every morning,
and that's been that way.
And what does that consist of for you? Do you throw up biles or foams or anything of the sort?
I have not, since I've had the tube and I've been staying away from food, I have not, like dry heat, but I haven't thrown up.
Okay.
The tube. But before the tube, it was all the time. Like, I dread it.
I am so sick of it. I am so sick of it. I am beyond sick of throwing up that foam every morning, and then my lungs I gotta clean out. And then that's the only time I get to use the bathroom. So I'm like literally detoxifying my body in all these ways all morning. It's like an hour process every morning. And then I get to have something hot to try to like break it all down. And if I don't throw that back up, then once I do that, I'm generally good for most of the day until the evening time. Then I'm back at it again right before probably dinner. And it's like every 12 hours, I want to say, like clockwork. And if I miss dinner time, then by like 2 or 3 in the morning, then it has to happen. And then, then it doesn't skip 7 a.m. Like in the morning, it's still right back like clockwork. Even if the last session was late, they know what time they're supposed to be here tomorrow. They will be here on time today, and then we'll be back at clockwork. And it's like I can't, no matter what I do, stop that, or no matter what I eat or drink. And then the biles or whatever comes after the foam. Once I get to that, I'm generally at the bottom. And no matter what I drink along the way to help me like stop vomiting is also up. Then I would go through the dry heaving, and then after dry heaving, I'm pretty okay. Something hot will stop the dry heaving, like hot tea or hot coffee, just a couple sips. Not enough to actually drink or hurt my bladder, but just enough to like stop my trachea from dry heaving.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And then a little bit of water in between those, but not enough to vomit it back up.
Right.
Just like a capful here and there. You know? And it's like, okay.
There's nothing worse than that bile.
Yes, and it's a morning, and then if I do that all morning, now I'm so wore out from vomiting that I'm not ready to eat anything because I don't want it to come back up. I'm not ready to drink anything because I don't want it to hurt me. And then my head aches because now I haven't eaten and I haven't drinking. So now I'm dehydrated, my head hurts, I got the circles under my eyes. And I'm like, how do I manage this again? And it's like I'm getting back at the point, and I'm trying to get into these doctors, and they're not helping me right now. And the other doctors are all trying to figure out their own problems that they have with those organs of mine that have problems, that none of them are addressing the other problems. And it's like, I kind of just wish that we had a doctor. I wish all my doctors would have a team, and I want to find a place, kind of like what the Mayo Clinic does, and Sloan Kettering and John Hopkins and Willie Presbyterian Cornell and all of those big fabulous places. Like, there's nowhere in Michigan where a multi-sick person can go and just get a team of doctors that actually all work together and manage you together, and you don't have to do the managing for them. That you just go in like the Mayo Clinic, you just let them handle all your problems. They'll figure everything out, get you on all your treatment plans, get you on all your regimens, get you on rehabilitation, and you're good. You can come there, do what you got to do, come inpatient, outpatient, whatever. We don't have that here. And it's like, that's what we're missing, like, or I'm missing. Like, I know I'm missing it. None of my kidney doctor isn't working with my hematologist doctor. My hematologist doctor doesn't work with my other oncologist. My lupus doctor doesn't work with my thyroid doctor. My thyroid doctor doesn't work with. So I'm managing like all of these with individual doctors, and it's kind of like having individual relationships. I can't have that many relationships with different people and remember everything with all these brain fogs. I couldn't even remember where your office was today. I had to re-GPS you from your phone number saved in my phone, and I've been to your office a million times. I should probably never forget where you are, but I can never remember where the doctor office is when I'm going. Like, dang, I know I'm going to the leukemia specialist, but what building is she on? What city is she in? Which one does she look like again? Was she the one with the dark hair or the blonde hair? Dang, this girl helps me all the time, but I can't even remember her face. I just know I need to get into her office, wherever that is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If only we could get all of them in the same room at the same time.
I
and
wish.
That would be the ideal situation. So everybody can talk, so everybody can be like, well, this, because communication is key. And
in any relationship.
Yes.
So why our doctors don't have communications, and why are we not adversing that into this key relationships of ours? Like, you're my life saviors, but yet you guys don't communicate. So I have to send the message from this heaven to that heaven, and who said what?
Right.
And I'm become the messenger so much, and then I forget the messages that I forgot to tell you that the last doctor told me she took me off that one med, and that you were supposed to put me on something different. Yeah, right. But here it is 3 months later. But I just remembered. But yeah, I'm just not telling you. but look, at least I remembered enough to tell you. You should be happy right now. But like, it's all in the books, it's all in the papers, but no one's sending none of these like lab works back and forth. So every time I leave a doctor's office, I get a copy of like what today was, or I go and I go home and I print off the patient summary from the online portal, and I add it in my little filing cabinet. And now, every time I go somewhere, I've got a big stack of crap, and here you go.
Yeah.
I don't have to remember nothing. Every surgery, or every pathology report, every biopsy, every tumor, every cyst, everything is right there for you. I don't remember how big it was. I don't remember where it was located. I don't remember what treatments we did for that particular one. But it's gone.
Yeah.
I know that much.
It's impossible to remember every single thing.
It truly is. And so B12 became an issue for me. And in my stomach, I developed another disease from the B12 being low. So B12 is something that definitely helps your memory and your brain. And when I take B12, I can feel the change in my head, and the brain fogs like dissipate. And vitamin D3 also helped me with my memory a lot from my bones and my osteoporosis. It depletes the vitamin. So vitamin D3, when I took that, I could feel like I could remember things, and I was like, oh my God, that's like my memory pill. That's not a vitamin, And I would make jokes with my husband. But those two vitamins have helped me with my immune system and my memory really good. So if your brain fogs are really bad, you might want to look into those vitamins, because sometimes when certain vitamins are low, your body is depleting it to another organ. So your brain actually needs some of those vital vitamins, and it's not getting them. So its job is left to do whatever it's going to be slacking on. And memory, for some reason, for the B12 and vitamin D3, has helped me dramatically when I take those. And I get the vitamins that dissolve like under your tongue. So that way I don't have to like chew them or wait for them to digest, because that's not going to happen.
Right. I'm on the vitamin D3, and also it's so weird whenever I do blood work, my B12 is like above the chart, like above normal all the time, which is so weird to me. Like,
there's a reason for that. Look into it. I'm sure. I can't think of what the reason is, because I remember when I was looking into why mine low, there's two reasons. It's either high or low for A or B. I was B. There was an A. I don't remember what all that A was when I was doing the studying, but there was an A. And whatever that A is, if that is left untreated, it has a ripple effect. And if you Band-Aid it with other vitamins like the D3 or other things, then it like hides some of the ripple effects, but it's still inevitably there, and it's just longer before you realize whatever that is. But something's adding too much B12.
And I even said something to the doctor. I was like, isn't this weird that my B12 is like off the charts every single time high? And he was just like, just kind of blew me off.
Have you ever looked into a nutritionist?
Oh, May I see one I talk to one every month.
So from the stomachs, the stuff that goes into your feeding tube, the potassium in that normally is what would get high first. But the fact that your B12 is high might have something to do with the type of, or the brand of the product you're using in your feeding tube. And you might need to get one that is lowered on that, or you might need to find something that takes, do something that absorbs the B12. I don't know what absorbs it in your body, what activity, or what you need to eat, or what you need to do, but a nutritionist would be able to help you with that part. But you definitely need to figure out how to use the B12 if you have it.
Right.
Get rid of it.
I'm thinking if I'm B12 off the chart, I should get my A game, all the time. It doesn't make any sense. I should be full of energy, and I haven't been full of energy in years.
Yeah, you would think that, but B12 isn't just for energy, but that's what they say it helps with. But to me, when I take B12, I don't notice a big difference. But that's for people who are not healthy, because you have a normal level of B12, and then once you get a certain amount, it gives you energy. But you yourself, you already have the feeding tube, which takes away so much energy. So anytime you get extra energy, it's probably always reapplied back, over there.
Yeah.
So it kind of brings back your normal crappy balance, for what your crappy balance is. That's your normal balance, but that's where it brings you back to normal for what's normal for you. So that could be why. But I would still monitor your B12, and I would also mention it to the hematologist and infectious disease people and whoever else, whatever other doctors you come across, because you never know who might have the answer to that. Somebody you come across will, or lab work that you are continue to get done. When you mention it, they might know, oh, well, we'll go ahead and test for these other things while we're at it then. Since we're already getting blood work for these issues, it won't hurt to look into that while we're in there.
Right.
Getting blood, because it's just a couple more vials of blood, some lab work that comes off the top of my head. And each doctor has a couple different lists of things that they would test for when they hear that, based on their department. So that's why I say mention it to each doctor, because you don't know what you could get. It's kind of like a hit or miss deal. They may just have the answer. They may stumble across something. And I've gone into offices trying to find the underlying cause of something else. And I mentioned something so small like that, and then I come back, like the B12 last time, I come back with a diagnosis, and it wasn't the diagnosis I went for. Came back with one, okay, so now we have a whole other issue to address. At least we know to address that. But still, what about that underlying cause?
Right.
So you still go back on that mission. But it's really good to identify all the other issues along the way, because then you can balance your body as a whole. And that goes back to that whole religion thing and finding balance in your body and faith and all of that stuff. Because when you have that, your body tends to do better. And you're able to detox depression and stuff too. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, if you could say who has been very supportive of you through all of this. I know you have little ones at home, and like you said, you're often gone away from them because of the Mayo Clinic. So who helps you through all of that? Who would you give your number one supporter, or a couple people that support you if it's more than one?
Absolutely. My husband, for sure, he's had to pick up a lot of the slack, and he's always been there for me and pulling me through the dark times. And, when we drive up there, he drives the whole way, Definitely my mother, because she helps me with my kids, watches my kids while I'm gone. I feel really blessed because I had a whole wonderful group of friends who are very supportive, and definitely Rachel Evans, who has deals with a lot of issues. She has GP herself. She has guided me through a lot. I'm so blessed that I met her while I was up there. But definitely my family, for sure.
Definitely. So if they were listening right now, what would you say to them?
I love each and every one of you, and thank you for dealing with my ups and downs and not giving up on me. And when I feel like giving up, or helping me to fight, remind me, it's worth it to fight. And loving me when I'm unlovable.
That's a good one. Loving me when I'm unlovable. I like that. I have to steal that. Yes. So if you could say something to somebody who is just now starting their fight or is at a point in their fight where they're ready to give up, what would you kind of say to encourage them?
There is a reason and a purpose that you're on this earth, and you are worth fighting for. I don't care if you say you don't have anybody. There is a purpose. You are here, and don't ever stop. Even if you hear something like, incurable, or you're never going to eat again, or you can think of, or don't ever stop fighting. One thing that I learned, my son, who's autistic, they told me when he was in kindergarten that he would never read, write, or be able to do math. He is 17 now, and he does all three. So
Amen.
Even if science and the doctors tell you this is never going to happen, don't ever believe that, because there's always hope. There's always miracles.
True story. I agree with you. Yeah, so at this point, I definitely want to know what's next in your journey.
What's next in my journey is I am going to find a hematologist and figure out what's going on with my platelets and see if I have that essential thrombocytosis. I'm not ready to do the permanent tube yet, so I will be continuing my NJs and working to see if I can start drinking things by mouth orally, like boost supplements and stuff. And
okay.
That's my goal right now.
I like your goal. I'm definitely interested to see about this hematologist, to see if she discovers whether you do or don't have that. Would you be interested in a follow-up with us?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Definitely. I can't wait because I want to see what she says. And I definitely would like you to see that infectious disease doctor and see if just what they have to say, you never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a hit or miss. And
I forgot about that.
Yes. See, and I want to follow up on that because that is where I really feel like your answers might give you more answers than where you're at or headed. I kind of feel like you're headed in the right direction too, but I also think it's kind of one of those things that might already be there and contributing, but not your underlying issue right now.
Right.
So I think you should definitely go to both. And I look forward to hearing how they both work, and I hope that the audience does too. So where can we find you? What support group was it you run again?
Gastroparesis Creations and Awareness.
Okay.
If you go on Facebook, Rachel Evans is actually the one who created the support group, but it's so positive. You'll get answers from a lot of people from all different walks of GP, every kind of GP, feeding tube, non-diabetic, everything.
Definitely.
And also, if you're a person that you don't have that kind of support, you can always reach out to me. I'm always trying to help people, especially when it comes to this, to advocate, to help if you don't know where to go or where to start or you're overwhelmed. Please feel free to contact me because I do not mind at all.
Definitely. I like that. And we have a support group that we just started called Sprinkle Some Love with a Cause. That's a support, and it says support group on it. And that's kind of where we share the journey of other people or mine or this podcast. And it has multiple diseases in it. We kind of all go through the same thing, I feel like, that is similar, like the depression that comes with it or the realization that comes with any, chronic illness. So if you guys want to go over there as well, check it out. And if Rachel or anybody from her support group is interested in coming on the podcast, I'm definitely open for as many interviews as possible. So anybody who's interested, reach out to me and you can find me there. And I look forward to doing a follow-up with you.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. So thank you for joining us. Until then,
for having me.
You're welcome. Until then, next time on Sprinkle Some Love with a Cause. Bye-bye.